again. I'm gonna make myself a cup of tea, and then we're gonna go into my great room, and I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna talk to you about Mother's Day. Mother's Day was yesterday here, and I've been thinking about my mom and my grandmothers and great grandmothers, how what they did on Mother's Day years ago, and we'll have a little talk about that. So I'm going to make my tea here. I boiled some water, and I'm using this teapot that my brother sent me a tea set when he was in Germany in like 1961 with the army, and he sent me a tea set, and I think it's beautiful. And I'm going to pour my hot water into here, but I'm going to use a spoon because you pour it down the spoon so it won't crack your teapot. If you can see this. I'm not going to fill it up because I won't drink that much tea. But I'm combining two teas tonight. I'm combining a ginger and probiotic tea with honey vanilla chamomile, which is probably my favorite tea. And and I like the ginger tea, but I have to have a little honey when I do the ginger tea. So I think we'll go on in and sit down in the great room. As I was telling you about my tea set that I have, and I'm going to actually pour myself a cup of tea. I do like to put a little honey in when I use the ginger teas because I like ginger, but it's got to have a little sweetness to it. So I keep a little sweet in there, and just pour this out here. And then I'm going to have my cup of tea, and we'll talk about Mother's Day. It was officially made Mother's Day in 1914 under Woodrow Wilson. He signed the proclamation. The lady was Anna Reeves, I believe, was Jarvis, Anne Reeves Jarvis, and and then her daughter went on to carry on. Now her mother had died though in 1905. She had started a mother's program back during the Civil War for both Confederate and Union mothers to talk about how to raise their children. So it had started way back then. And then Anna, the daughter, she didn't like the way Mother's Day went with cards and spending money on things for Mother's Day. So she tried to get it stopped, but she never did. I believe she died in 1948. But anyhow, I know my grandmothers, my great grandmothers, I mean, we always got a card for them. And now the official flower for Mother's Day, I believe, was a carnation. But we always took flowers to them. Sometimes we picked flowers in the woods, the wildflowers in the woods. Of course, they don't last very long, but we would go to the woods and pick flowers and take them to my mom, take them to my grandma. And it's just a way of showing your love for your grandmother and mother and great grandma, if you have your great grandmother. And I had a wonderful Mother's Day. A lot of my grandchildren texted me, and that wasn't possible years ago. No, they couldn't text, didn't have the phones, but they would either get together or they would send a card or just send a letter or a note, and probably maybe some of them drew their own pictures. And but they all always celebrated. All that I can remember, they celebrated Mother's Day. And it's kind of nice to celebrate Mother's Day because you kind of get a little vacation from doing the dishes, cleaning up. The guys always clean up. And Maybe some don't, but that's the way it is in our family. The guys, we had a dinner yesterday, and the guys cleaned up and washed the dishes and the pans and stuff. But so it was an interesting day. Um, my uh, my mom, she liked Mother's Day, and I'm just gonna tell you this. This is to my grandkids and great grandkids. Our farm was up against the cemetery, okay? And there was always a funeral, you know, it was a big cemetery. And we would go down there and pick flowers off the grave after they had a funeral. And especially Mother's Day, a lot of times we would have, that's where and they'd have carnations and stuff. Main flowers back then in the 40s and 50s were carnations and gladolias. So when we would take them home to my mom, she would say, "Oh, kids, it smells like a funeral home in here." And we'd put them in a vase for her. Well, I don't think they stayed very long because my mom just thought they smelled like a funeral home. It wasn't. But we did pick flowers for her off a grave, I remember, for Mother's Day. And because we didn't really have money to go to town, and we were little, we didn't have any way to go to town to buy my mom anything. So my dad would sometimes get mom a box of candy. And of course, we all ate it. But she was grateful for it. She was grateful for it. But that's kind of what happened on Mother's Day. And I can remember my great grandmother when she was still living, and we picked some flowers for her, and she just, she liked them, and it was actually on her farm, and but she never wanted you to spend any money on her at all. At all. She's very, very conservative, and of course we all were. We had to be. But growing up, um, being a mom myself, back when my children were little, I didn't use paper diapers at all. Uh, I used cloth diapers, and we rinsed them out and then washed them. And I know that's kind of unheard of today, but we did not waste the paper. We didn't buy diapers. I did buy some diapers when my fourth child was born, and we were going back and forth to Ohio after we moved to Indiana every other weekend because my father-in-law was very ill. And I used some cloth diapers on my youngest daughter, and she was just a baby. But by Monday, she was all she had a big rash, so I didn't like the cloth diapers. And that was, that was a long time ago. It's 54 years ago. So that's, but um, yeah, it was harder then. But didn't think anything about it because that's just what you did, and you didn't waste paper and trees. I guess that's what I think about. That's why I use a lot of cloth napkins, because I don't like to use the paper napkins because it wastes trees. I do use some paper towels though. But yeah, it and my mom, she never had paper towels. I don't remember having paper towels when we grew up. She used rags. We used rags for everything. And you just rewash the rags and rewashed them. And that's what we used to clean with, was rags. And I used rags a lot when the kids were growing up. So that's probably basically how mothers had to do. And it was, of course, with great grandmas and grandmas, it was the same way. They didn't have paper towels either. And paper napkins, we always had cloth napkins when we went to my grandma's for a dinner or something. We always had cloth napkins, and now everything's kind of papery. But yeah, and plastic spoons and forks, and I'm not big on those. I like to use a regular fork. Sometimes the forks break, but they have some pretty nice ones though. But
Do you remember your first Mother's Day? Your first Mother's Day as a mother?
my first Mother's Day as a mother, yeah, I do remember it. I remember Dick got me some flowers, and I think he got me a plant so that I could plant it outside. And yeah, that was probably what I had. I do remember that. It's something you don't forget. But yeah, I, on every other Mother's Day, it was just a nice time where you kind of reflect and think about your family. That's what I did. Think about how nice it was, and even though we didn't have everything, that we wanted or anything, we still got along with what we had. And that's a good thing now with young people. Sometimes the young people want to have what their parents have, but you got to work hard for it through your life. And Dick and I worked hard. We saved money. We did save. We had a budget, and we saved. And because if you don't, you won't have anything. You won't have anything. And when you retire, you have to have something. And the way things are going now, you're going to have to save money, or you won't have anything, because you don't know if you're going to have Social Security, which Social Security isn't that much. And it's basically for your groceries and rent if you're renting, or a house payment if you have a house payment. Hopefully, you don't have a house payment. Everything's paid for. So that's basically how everything was and is. And my advice is um, just love your children and teach them good things. Teach them to be good to each other and to other people. My mom and always taught us nobody's better than anybody else. You're all the same. And that's what I taught my kids. Don't ever think you're better than anybody else, because everybody is just as good as you are. And that's just, I think, a good thought. So talk to you later.